Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Leadership Exchange podcast. We have a lot of really, really exciting things to talk about today. I'm so happy to welcome two hosts here, Søren and Will, both from Prisma. Welcome, y'all.
Hey Tracy, good to see you.
Prisma has been moving really fast this year. What is the big story that anybody who hasn't been following along has missed?
Well, finally Prisma is moving fast again. There's been this perception in the Prisma community that we are moving super slow, and that's because we've had this very complex architecture. So we've been slow to react to feedback from the community. But now, this year, with the release of Prisma 7, we really focused on fixing all the small things that people have been asking for a very long time. So that's why we're seeing this perception in the community.
I feel like the vibe in the tech ecosystem for a long time, right? So 2020, we're just kind of all, going through COVID and everything like that. And then, I feel like the web world got, boring, if you will, right? And then, nothing really exciting was happening or all the problems had been solved. And so everybody was kind of hanging out and trying to figure out what was next. And then now all of a sudden with AI, I feel like everybody has a purpose again.
Yeah, it was interesting. We had this big Web 3.0, the crypto period. That thankfully we passed that. But for a good 2 years, everybody who wanted to look into new things, they were all looking into crypto. And it was really, really weird because to many of us technologists, it's obvious that it wasn't really very interesting. And now with AI, we have a new environment that looks a little bit like a bubble. Many things seem similar to what we saw in the crypto world, but it's actually useful. So it's super exciting. And it's a world that is moving really, really fast.
Love to hear a little bit more of the details about Prisma 7 and any sort of insider baseball you guys can give us. There was a lot of great updates. I saw the blog post, the Twitter post, the YouTube videos, so new docs that you all released. So tell us more.
Sure thing. I guess the biggest characteristic change of Prisma 7 is the shift Prisma's making away from Rust and doubling down on TypeScript. If you've been following Prisma's development for the last 6 to 12 months, this won't be a big surprise to you. We've been very open about it, that we're shifting away from Rust, but it does sound like a counterintuitive move, right? Like everyone else is moving towards Rust because it's so fast and so efficient. And here's Prisma going the opposite direction. There is a good reason for that, which is the advantages that Rust brings are really good if you're building like a compiler or something that has a lot of CPU intensive operations. But if you're talking to a database, as Prisma does, then all of your latency happens in communication with the database. And then having a really efficient thing on the client side that processes it in Rust doesn't really help you. But it does make your architecture very complex, and some parts of your operation become more expensive. So we're trimming down, making everything simpler, moving everything to TypeScript. And we're not there yet, but we've gone quite a long way with Prisma 7. And this is establishing the path for us to move more of our operations out of Rust and just into TypeScript. And that's, of course, really helpful for our extensive TypeScript community, for whom having everything in TypeScript is more ergonomic for the applications that they're writing.
I mean, especially being sort of, this that while we're full stack, we are very focused on the JavaScript ecosystem. So it is kind of annoying sometimes where it's like, oh, we just need a little bit of what X experience, right? Like a little bit of Rust experience or a little bit of whatever. It's just so much smoother, right? Like to just work within one ecosystem, one language, and have everything sort of the same. So congrats on the progress.
Thank you. And it's really been a huge issue for us, I would say. We have obviously a very huge community. We have about 1 million developers using the Prisma ORM. And they come to us and they want new features, new functionality. And one, we are a small team, so we can't build everything. But two, it takes a lot of time for us to build new functionality because we have this complex architecture where at the core we have Rust and this communication layer to a TypeScript binding. It's a lot of work for us to implement new functionality. But even worse, when people in the community want to come and contribute, they can't figure this complex architecture out. It's just too much. So we're moving to a place where everything is just TypeScript. It's a lot easier to engage with. And a side benefit we've seen is that we can now use LLM agents to implement simple functionality. That just did not work for us before because the architecture was too complex for an agent to figure out. But now we can have agents effectively operate in our code base. So we're going to be able to deliver functionality a lot faster in the future.
So not only improving sort of internal productivity or velocity, but then also you sort of open the doors to maybe a lot of open source opportunities that might have been closed in the past.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, because I always know how it feels, right? Like I feel like everyone who loves open source in the developer ecosystem, like really wants to help and be useful. And it's people when they can't be useful, right? So
yeah. And probably like the other big shift that you'll see with Prisma 7 is, yes, we're moving away from Rust. We're also starting to like tease apart this big system that we've had for the last 7 years or however old Prisma is. And you'll see as a user, you have a lot more configurability now. You can mix and match adapters and drivers and stuff in Prisma now, which were much more difficult to control before. And in the next version of Prisma, you're going to have even more configurability.
So a place that this comes in is, for example, if you try to deploy your application to Cloudflare workers, a more specialized environment. We've had support for this for a long time, but not great support. And the reason for that is that we have this monolithic code base that tries to figure out what environment are you running in and then adapt to that. And what we're going towards is you declaring what parts of Prisma you want, and then you get just those things. So we're going to have a runtime and a driver that works a lot better in a constrained environment like Cloudflare, and that can do only one thing. It can only connect to the serverless Postgres from Neon or whatever you happen to be using.
We'll be back to the episode in a second, but first I'd like to acknowledge the team behind the channel, This.Labs. We're seeing 3x to 5x productivity improvements with our teams and clients using tools like Cursor, Claude Code, and GitHub Copilot. We help teams adopt these technologies and get max value out of them through strategic partnerships, trainings, and other software engineering services. Check us out at ai.this.co. Thanks, now back to the video.
So now that Prisma 7 is released, and gosh, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I feel like everybody always asks this question, right? Like, okay, you just had a release, so when's the next release? Do you feel like now all of a sudden things are going to be sped up and, we're getting Prisma 8 by March?
Well, you might. We're not quite sure yet what we're doing with Prisma 8, but we have this kind of beginning of an idea that we really want to make sure that that Prisma works really well with agentic software development. So right now, we did the Prisma 7 launch just last week. We just passed that. Now we have some briefing room. And we want to figure out what does it mean for an ORM to be the best possible ORM in this world of agentic software development. If the primary author of code is not an experienced software developer, it's an agent. Well, what does the ORM need to provide? So we have some thoughts on this. We want to go and talk to more people in the ecosystem, and then that's probably what we're going to do with Prisma 8. And Will, maybe you can talk us through some of these initial thoughts we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Søren, I think you did us a disservice at the beginning there. It's not that we don't know what we want. We have some very clear guiding principles, things that will be obvious to long-time users of Prisma. If you've been using Prisma for a long time, it's probably because you value having Prisma's simple, centralized description of how your database is going to look and how your application will interact with it. You probably value the safety that Prisma's ORM gives you. You can write queries and your TypeScript, your IDE will give you feedback as you go and confidence that the queries that you're writing will function with a database that's set up with the schema you've described. And projecting that into the future, we want to maintain the same sorts of safety guarantees and the same DX and characteristics Prisma has always had, but make them even more Prisma. We've started pulling apart our monolith and making it more accessible to users, and we want to do more of that too. So we want things to be further decoupled, more composable, So users can use it in new types of environments without Prisma making assumptions about how you want it to behave. And as we move into this agentic workflow, one thing we're seeing is that what really matters is fast feedback loops, preferably feedback loops that can completely circumvent the user, so your agent can try to write a query based on your instructions and make some mistake and have the system tell it, you tried to write a query and you didn't include a filter for your select, and that's going to return an unbounded query, right? Don't do that. And here is the point where you made this mistake. So we want to start establishing really fast, clear feedback loops that benefit humans, but for agents mean that you can set them to do whatever it is that you want and have them go and try it and fail and make a change and try it again, all without your intervention. And that's sort of the direction that we're going.
Are you all optimizing for I guess you guys haven't really started on Prisma 8 yet, but are you guys optimizing for specific agents or specific workflows or MCPs or CLIs, or how are you all thinking about that?
We would prefer to be agent agnostic. We don't want Prisma to be tied to any particular tool chain, but we do want to make sure that it has a really good, simple integration flow for all of the common workflows and tool chains. So for example, we have a local MCP server and we have a remote MCP server. We're encoding instructions for agents into the documentation that comes with our NPM packages, so agents will learn how to use the tool without you having to give them any instruction. The types of feedback loops that I'm talking about creating are like error messages from the system will contain all of the instructions an agent needs to correct itself, and none of this is tool specific. This should work with everything. And I think that's the best way for a commonly used tool in the ecosystem to behave, right? Don't force people into a particular vendor chain. Be accessible to everyone.
Yes, I was just wondering if, because I feel like the industry has sort of settled on Sonnet, whatever number or version is currently up to date as being sort of like the go-to, if you will, right?
It changes so fast, though, and it's been interesting to observe this churn that is just going on all the time. It's really only been a year where agents have been good enough to do anything meaningful, maybe even less than a year.
Oh, yes. Yeah. MCPs have been around for a year or probably almost just celebrated their 1-year birthday, right? Which is crazy to think about.
Yes.
I think in any ecosystem where iteration is happening this rapidly, if the industry settles on any good idea, everyone will adopt it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a big risk saying if you want to start using a tool that's only utilized by one agent or one group of agents right now, by next week, everyone will be doing it.
Yeah. So all of the things that you were talking about, because I know new documentation and things like that were released in Prisma 7, but all of these sort of agent optimized, if you will, things that you were talking about, were you talking about that's available now and that's with Prisma 7, or is that hey, this is the future and this is sort of the optimization for 8?
This is more the direction that we're going. We've started laying the foundations for this now, but yeah, we'll be adding more and more of these optimizations over time. And most of them are honestly just optimizations for humans. Right? If you put doc comments into your functions, humans will read them or see them in their hover states in their editor, but agents will get them too. There's just a greater return on investment to doing more of that and including a few more of the dummy details that humans would find annoying and repetitive. But agents, it will make them behave better under more different circumstances.
Yeah. I think the funniest thing about AI is all the things that, we as developers, right, better documentation or, better onboarding, et cetera, is, now it's required for agents. So it sort of makes everybody who's been wanting to do this happier because now it can actually be on the roadmap versus oh, that's just a nice to have.
I think that one of the other interesting changes is that agents won't be as opinionated as humans. right? So like if humans like using a particular functional style, agents don't care. So as developers start leaning more on their agents and caring less about the specifics of the implementation, we can provide more of a common denominator that's less stylistically inclined to one group of people or another.
Yeah, I do love that. Yeah, no more arguments with silly things like tabs versus spaces or whatever
Exactly.
else. The age-long debate.
Tabs, I don't write my own tabs.
But to your point, Tracy, it's been really interesting to see how kind of just complacent we've been as software developers. We've just accepted that we didn't have good enough documentation, not that we didn't have good enough tooling. We could have made ourselves more productive all this time. We just didn't because it was kind of good enough and we didn't want to. But now that we're being forced to do it for agents, it's tremendously beneficial for us humans doing normal software development.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the same thing of like, when everybody was like JavaScript versus TypeScript, but then, if you really start converting your code base over to TypeScript, you realize like how many bugs you didn't realize were in there.
Just do it. Just put in the types. It'll be okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love this future. In terms of you all sort of internally working with agents and things like that, has everything sped up just sort of using AI in your day-to-day workflows?
Yes, and it's kind of unevenly distributed. I think we see some people who really lean into it and get a huge benefit from it. But we're still at that point where not everybody has accepted that this is the way of the future, and they need to kind of get over the hump and get convinced. I don't think we have strict numbers on it. We were just discussing it today, and it's anywhere between like 3 to 10 times more productive. I feel like that's the range we're looking at.
Yeah, I think it really is a paradigm shift. It's possible to replace like your core developer workflow with an agent-driven workflow, but it isn't necessarily possible to do it on day one. If you start writing a new code base, you can make it agent accessible from the beginning, kind of like mobile-first development, right? Like when that kicked off, it was if you design your stuff mobile-first from the beginning, it's going to be mobile-first. It's going to be mobile accessible, but it's really hard to put it into a system that was designed desktop-first. This is a bit similar to that, but if you can do it, I think we're seeing at least 10x improvements in developer productivity.
I've certainly been at least 10x more productive because I don't actually have time for proper software development. So I can sit in meetings and prompt away with Claude a little bit, and I get stuff done that I just couldn't do before.
And when you do this effectively, it elevates your developers from being programmers to being architects. You can start thinking just in terms of design patterns, and the implementation is taken off your hands and it's made much, much quicker. And then you can iterate at the design level instead of iterating at the implementation level.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. And I actually love to hear that you all are as well as a team sort of going through the journey, right? Because I think everybody, I think a lot of folks sort of look at AI and they say, okay, well, we're not on board and, these teams are so far ahead and how are we ever going to catch up? And, there's a lot of sort of like emotional, like there's a lot of emotions around AI generally, right? And adopting AI. But I think the reality of it is, as developers across the spectrum on every single team, we're all kind of at the same place, right? Some people adopting, some people not. It's still a journey that we're going through.
It's just this transition that the entire industry has to go through, and you're right. There is a lot of angst from developers. It's angst of being replaced. Will the computers just do all the work? From management, it's angst of wasting money on all these salaries now that the agents can just do all the work. But I think as individuals and organization, you really just need to take the first step and start to experiment with this thing, learn a little bit, and then do better every week or every month. And eventually you just get familiar with it and you figure out how it fits into your workflow.
I very much thought about, because I think this year, right, Søren, you were saying like, wow, it hasn't even been a year where we felt like, oh, all of a sudden agents are actually productive. You can actually get that 10x productivity. I feel like a lot of people, maybe just started feeling that way in January. And then, you fast forward 6 months, and I'm so curious, like, where is, if we can get, for people who are on the bleeding edge of using things like Claude Code, and 100% of the code is generated by AI, and they're super productive. What's next in the next 6 months, right? Like, what are we not even seeing? And is it sort of this 10x thing, or have we moved past that and now we're going to sort of start seeing it trail off a little bit and just sort of see incremental wins? Or is there just like this huge next jump that we're about to see that we can't even predict?
Well, this is going to be a lot of speculation, right? But I think 12 months ago, we saw that the models were just good enough to work in greenfield projects. You saw Lovable and Bolt, these kind of projects where you can put in a prompt, you can get a new thing, and as long as it's not too complex, you can even modify it a little bit. That was fun and interesting, but it's not really relevant for the kind of software engineering we're talking about. Just in the last 3, 4, 5 months, we've gotten to a point where you can do real, meaningful editing in an existing complex code base. So to me, that's what the latest shift has been about. I can sit down and do very complex refactoring in a very big code base using Codex, and it'll do meaningful things. I will not have to sit down for hours and hours and fix it afterwards. But I still have to be in the loop and kind of guide it and get it going in the right direction. I feel like the next unlock is some system that can do that guiding automatically, so I don't have to be in the loop all the time. If this agent could just churn away for hours and hours, and I could come back and look at the complete result instead of having to manage all of the 7 steps in between.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you can get some kind of exponential takeoff in productivity, and that's.
I think we're seeing this already emerging in the industry. People who are pairing groups of agents that are tailored to different tasks in the software development lifecycle. Like you've got your coordinating agent that's really good at reasoning, like GPT, and then you've got your implementation agent that's really good, and in between you have like a planning agent that can break something into tasks and feed them to the lower level agent. This is where I think the next iteration of the industry is going to go, where developers have gone from being the people who write the code to being the people who manage the agent to being the people that manage the groups of agents that work as a team. So like we've taken away the individual developer and replaced them with a manager. Now we're going to replace them with like one layer up the chain.
I mean, it's all very exciting to me. I'm stoked out of my mind. And it's exciting because, again, looking at Prisma as a company, right? Like, sure, you guys are doing really cool things, but then also the way you all are doing really cool things as an engineering team is also very exciting. Søren, I feel like, you guys have been 6 or 7 years or 8 years now, right? It's been a while. Tell us a little bit about sort of your hopes for like an integrated experience. Like, what are you hoping for in the next few years for Prisma?
So last year, and I think we were on the other podcast, Modern Web, talking about this. We launched a hosted Postgres. So we have lots of developers using our ORM, including, I think, 50% of the Fortune 2000 companies. So it's a household thing. It's just very broadly adopted. And now we launched hosted Postgres that feeds, that works really well with the ORM, of course, but more importantly is super low friction. So we have introduced hosted Postgres, super low friction. And we've also introduced local Postgres development in a super low friction way. So we worked with the team from Electric SQL. They've done this super magical thing where they've taken Postgres, compiled it to WASM, so you can run it locally without having to install anything. We've included that into the Prisma CLI experience. So the default path now when you start a new project with Prisma 7 is you're running Postgres locally, but you don't have to install it. It's just there. It's a database for your project. And then as you get going, you start building things, then you can graduate to a hosted Postgres database from Prisma. It's free to get started. There's a nice free tier. You can then upgrade and scale as you go. But this is the kind of integrated experience we wanted to deliver to a very large audience. We want to lower the friction right away from the beginning. You get started, you experiment, you deploy things in production. And only as you start having actual traffic, then you can start to scale up and pay for the thing and so on.
Yeah, and I think during the planning call also, I think, Will, you were saying not a lot of people know about the database.
Yeah, that's right. The database that Søren just mentioned.
Yeah.
It's called Prisma Postgres.
Yeah. But and I think one thing that I've been seeing, which, I'm not up to date on how deeply you guys are integrating in with all of these different vibe coding, I don't know if we want to call them agents, but vibe coding tools. I guess you would call it an agent. Yeah. Agent, it's like agent is such a word now that's fluid, right? Like, what actually does agent mean? But things like, V0, for example, right? It's like whatever is recommended within that, like, okay, you want to set this up. Okay, you want to automatically set up a database, right? Anything that's recommended in those workflows is just boom when it comes to user traction. So have you guys been doing a lot of that stuff?
We have been doing that, and we're in the Vessel marketplace. We're working with some other agentic platforms. But I think most importantly, we have designed the architecture for our hosted Postgres offering such that we can spin up lots and lots of databases and have very little overhead. Traditionally, Postgres, of course, is a stateful application. You need it to be running. You need to have some data loaded into memory. And that just sets the ceiling for how cheap it can be. If you try to do this on AWS, you're looking at $4 or $5 per month at a minimum per database.
Yeah.
We have worked with a team out of Germany called Unicraft that has they've built a special unikernel technology where they can compress the size of the operating system, and that enables us to really, really quickly take memory snapshots, store them to disk, and then load them up again when a request comes in. So if you have a database with very little traffic, we will completely suspend your database and load it back up into memory between requests, and that means that we can operate these databases for less than $0.01 per month if you have some medium, small traffic.
I love that. I think it's so interesting, again, how AI it's changing everything, right? It's changing the way internal teams work. It's changing how things are architected, right? It's changing roadmaps it's changing how developers are interacting with companies like yours. But then it's also changing the go-to-market and the what I also think is so crazy is because now with all this vibe coding, right? Like everybody who wasn't a developer or had a side project or whatever it was, all of a sudden, they can do all these things. So like the demand for you all must be just skyrocketing.
It's really exciting. When we started this company, our product looked quite differently, and our goal was to democratize building applications with data. And now, with all of this AI stuff, that's really becoming reality. You have people who would never consider themselves software developers. Well, they're building apps that solve real problems in their lives and their businesses, and that's just super exciting to be a part of.
Yeah, the other thing you see is that AI is changing the education path that users go through as they're learning the types of concepts that Prisma works with. And Prisma from the very beginning was all about making your operations with data less about the low-level stuff and focusing more on how you build your application. What is your application logic? Now with agents, you can take that a step further, and you don't even have to learn how Prisma works initially. You can start scaffolding an application and have something functional that you care about. And you only have to organically learn the new concepts Prisma exposes to you when they become relevant to the way you want to change the behavior of your application. And then Prisma lets you organically learn even more low-level concepts when they become relevant. You've discovered your application is taken off, you've got some users, you need to optimize a query. Okay, well, here are the tools you use to do that.
This is very much so. I was recently talking to somebody about how developer education is changing, right? And it's this whole idea that, like, okay, just like you said, okay, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know, like, at a certain point, what this means, when it specifically matters. And so documentation or education or how we consume as developers education is going to change as well.
What will rise in prominence, though, is like you don't need to know everything up front, but understanding what good software development patterns are is going to become much more important really quickly.
Yeah, that's actually also interesting because I think for a while now, right? Like the bootcamp developer was in demand a few years ago. Now, maybe not so much, but we said even for the past few years, right? Like not a lot of junior developers have been in demand. The market has slowed. Now we're seeing, okay, people are wanting to hire junior developers because they need to make a change, right? I mean, a lot of these junior developers are like more excited about using AI or willing to use AI or make changes versus the people who have been there already. But
I think that's a really good point. Like it's difficult for new developers to break into the job market at the moment because AI has effectively replaced the junior developer position. We don't need people who can do simple tasks for low pay anymore because we have agents, right? But if the training and education of bootcamp level developers, if that shifts to learning how to pilot AIs really effectively, there are lots of existing incumbent organizations that are filled with developers who, as we discussed before, have a lot of angst about changing the way that they develop. So they're very resistant to it. So there is an opportunity now for new developers to skill up on AI and enter organizations who don't have that skill set.
yeah, I definitely love that. But then, you all, you both have computer science degrees, but I also feel like a computer science degree, which gives you the foundation of understanding, like not just, boot camp, not all boot camp grads, but most boot camps, right, is really teaching you how to implement, right? Versus like, okay, high level, if you have a computer science degree, it doesn't really matter what language it is in because you guys already understand the concept of the language. So you can move back and forth more easily, but it's like computer science degrees, I think, are even more important now with AI, right? With all the fluidity everywhere. Like how do you understand the base concept? So maybe that's another boot camp. Maybe that's like boot camps change with, it's more understanding high level computer science concepts plus AI and like that boot camp model.
Yeah. When we went through our computer science degrees, there was a lot more of a focus on very low level details, like how does memory management work? How would you write this in C? And then like after you've learned the low level languages, here is how you do that in the higher level languages. And now you get to start thinking about architectural patterns because you don't have to manage your own memory. For people entering the market today, those kinds of details are going to be irrelevant for a very long time. You're not going to have to touch your own memory management until 15 years into your career when you get to some really niche shop that you're working at. For people entering now, if you start at the point of learning software architecture patterns, you'll be much better prepared for doing something effective in the industry where the AI is actually like implementing your architecture for you. It's a bit like we've just taken the entire industry from driving manual to driving automatic. Now you don't have to think about like when to put the clutch in, how to change the gears. You can actually think about changing lanes and turning corners and stuff.
Don't hit other cars, like important things.
This is just like the ecosystem just continuously sort of it reminds me of like, oh, you can just use a framework now. Oh, there is a CLI for you now. Just here we go again. Whatever 7 to 10 years later of the same conversations and who's to say what's going to happen later on. So, well, thank you all for joining me. This was such a great conversation. Everybody should definitely check out the new Prisma 7 release. But even more exciting, I think I'm super excited about what's happening for Prisma 8 and just sort of where you all are going as a company. Pretty stoked.
We're pretty excited for that too. Well, thank you for having us, Tracy. This has been great.
Yes, and where can we find you online to learn more?
Well, you can find me on Twitter is the best place. Just search for Søren, search for Prisma. I know, Will, you're not on Twitter, so where are you?
Twitter is not my favorite platform. You can always find me on the Prisma Discord server.
Oh, perfect. Amazing. And my good friend, Mike Hardington, just joined your team. So our good friend now. Is he there with you all right now?
He's not here today, but we were in a call with him earlier. Mike is the best.
Well, hi, Mike. Yeah, so if anybody was wondering where Mike Hardington is now, that's where he is. So I'm sure you'll be seeing him as well on the Discord server,
Yes.
etc. Yeah. Well, again, thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you all next time.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks for having us, Tracy.